there's so many different interesting things to talk about, but the immediate thing I want to jump into was, and you've really put it out there in 2010, you made a monumental decision, and that was alcohol gone. Why was it? What was going on in life? I mean, you were a dad already at this point, married.
Yeah. Well, let's go down memory lane. Yeah. I mean, like coming to the decision to just say no to alcohol and say yes to the life I wanted, it took a while to get there, because it's one thing to say that you want things to change, but, just saying it and not following it up with actions. And, we know where that can lead us. And for me at that point in time in my life, both my kids were under the age of 6 and 6 and 4, almost 7 and 5. And I have two daughters, Chardonnay and Brie. Wine and cheese. In case
I was going to say, damn, that's a hell of a name for a recovering alcoholic.
I know, but that was before, right?
Meet my son, Jack Daniels and Johnny Walker.
Totally. Seriously. I know. But wine and cheese. And I've been, dating my wife now 22 years. Nice. So at that point in time, we had been together 10 years. And life was interesting. I was my 20s. I learned how to mask a lot of my social anxiety with alcohol. Bottom line, when I would drink, even just a couple drinks, I would shift. My energy would completely change. Yep. I'd be more gregarious, more outgoing, more energetic, I guess, just because also, what it's like, you start drinking. It's just like, it is, as they call liquid courage, as this cliche goes. It was very much that for me. So it was my way of escaping. But over time, it started to turn into more than just escapism. It turned into me just ignoring certain emotions in my life and trying to avoid them entirely, and it just was so easy. I mean, it was a lot easier to uncork a bottle or, pop a cap. And it was easy. And it became just my habit. And life didn't get easier the more I drank. Like I like to pretend that it did. And,
don't we all?
Well, seriously, right? Like it was so simple. But also when I think back, my association at the time, because I'm a big believer in role models, but also mentorship. I'm a big believer. Like from a business standpoint, it's what it allowed me to be successful in the businesses that I've done is based on those two principles. And yet, when I look at my social interactions and my social connections at that time, my sphere of influence, the habits that I was doing over and over again were being role modeled by my circle. Like I didn't know there was any other way to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, right? When you really start to pay attention to the people that we call our closest friends.
Yeah.
And because we all started adopting the same beliefs and we reinforce those beliefs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Crazy, right? And I feel you 100% on that. Was it just within friends choosing? Was it family as well that this was kind of a thing? I know for some people, hey, families get together and it's a holiday. Oh, well, we crack a few bottles of wine or whatever. Was it just the people you were seeking out and connected to? Because I know you talk a lot about being in the wrong place at the wrong time, that people just say, oh, I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time, with taking away that we have the power of choice. We get to choose our actions and environments.
You're spot on. And if I go back, like it got to a point where the alcohol use, like I'd have a few drinks with my buddies and it would often lead to cocaine, to a couple bumps of rail here and there, and that would also lead, because I completely changed my demeanor. All my values that I said were important to me, the kind of person that I believed that I was and I was acting as, that guy went away somewhere. He got locked away. And I was completely different, and promiscuous. I cheated on my wife a lot. And I still feel shame and guilt around that. Because I wasn't role modeling the kind of person that I'd want my own daughters to potentially wed. Like when I'm going to cut to the point here, guys. Like it was so hard. I remember that day I went out, had an all-nighter, ignored my wife's texts and even her pleas to come home, like just turn off the phone. I still don't even remember how I got home that night. I have no idea. But I woke up on the floor that morning, and it was like 11 a.m. It was pretty late in the morning. Family's awake downstairs. And my wife's unloading the dishwasher. I knew this clearly because it's all I could hear with the dishes clanging. So as I say, she was unloading the dishwasher with a lot of passion and fervor. Like every dish was clanging. It was like, I know she was trying to get my attention, get me to wake up, right? I made it down there. And when I locked eyes with her, like it was the craziest thing. Cause at this point we'd been together 10 years. Yeah. You get to know each other really well, dreams, ambitions, goals, but you also know how to push each other's buttons. But she was always someone that, we can have fun together. We've always had fun together. And at that moment, the way she looked at me, she'd never looked at me that way before. And it was like this complete disdain, like just like disdain, disgust, like just, like, it was basically like, I'm done. Yeah. And for those of us that have been in a romantic relationship where we've had, the best of love, and then all of a sudden when that love disappears and you're left with a lot of other maybe negative emotions in its place, it felt like that's what I was experiencing right then and there. And so we sat down and we started talking, and she was just like putting the hammer down, like, this is not an environment to raise our kids in. And to be fair, I was the first idea of what a man is to my kids. Now I recognize I'm a man who identifies as a man, so I'm talking from that perspective. But sure. My daughters, whatever orientation they decide, whatever, I just want them to be great human beings, and that's the conversation I'm talking right now. But I was their first idea of what a man is, what a dad is, what a husband is, what a brother is, what an entrepreneur is. Like that's who I was role modeling to them. But the behaviors I was role modeling, I would never want them to adopt, nor would I want them to have a partner in their life that was modeling what I was doing. But I didn't see that, guys. I didn't see that because I was so clouded by everything else I was doing and my own grief and just complete disregard with my own life, and my wife sat me down, and by this point there's tears on both sides, and the kids are still watching Dora the Explorer on the TV in the room. And
good show.
Yeah. Back. There's gonna be people writing in now. God dang it, I'm not gonna get that song into my head. But she looked at me and she asked me a question, and this is the question I really hammer home for anybody that might be relating to what I'm sharing right now, because there's very few questions in our life that when we're asked it, everything can change in a moment. And this is the question. Dai, are you being the kind of man that you'd want your daughters to marry? That question, just for some reason, that day at that time, based on those conditions, like I woke up. Wow. I was like, just instantaneously, I felt like I got punched in the nose and kicked in the nuts at the same time. Like it was just, oh, no, I'm not. Because I couldn't honestly answer to her. It didn't matter how much good I was doing when I was sober, because what I was doing when I wasn't sober far outweighed any of the good that I had done. And it really ultimately dismissed it.
Yeah.
Because it was my way of trying to make up for the things I already knew I was going to do bad.
Well, it seems, tell me maybe your stance on what your wife shared with you. I know for me that people is just like, the good just seems like a bunch of bullshit because it's disingenuous.
That's right. That my wife got to that point, because she saw me and she fell in love with a guy that, a certain individual, a certain person. And that's who I believed I was and who I believed I was still becoming. But I wasn't 100% true on that.
Sure.
Because I wasn't really willing to do the work to truly get rid of some of those habits and underlying beliefs. And you know what, if I really got down to it, I just didn't know how to ask for help.
Yeah.
I think that's where it was,
Let me ask you this. So this has been going on for 10 years when you got the look, which is very common because we've talked to past guest, Kelly Osborne, got the look from her. Yeah. She was telling us about that look where she knew it was like, okay, fuck. But so this has been going on for 10 years. And that's obviously, I'm assuming, not the first time that's happened. Not necessarily the look, but you stumbling in, not remembering how you get home because, we've all partied. That's happened many of times. Still to this day, I don't remember 19 through 24 years old. That's all a blur to me. What was a normal morning like waking up the days previous to that?
Well, I'm an early riser, and it didn't matter how much I would do or how late I'd stay up. I just was hardwired to wake up early, typically, that morning.
So you're one of those who never got the hangover kind.
Well, when I was younger, I was resilient enough that I'd bounce back and I could get through a hangover pretty quickly.
Sure.
And I think it was the only saving grace that I really had was that I did have, actually, from outside looking in, I had a really healthy lifestyle.
Right. Sure. Right.
Except for when I didn't, and that was a part of me that I kept sheltered, and there's only a select group of people that would see that. Yeah. And so it felt like living a double life. Right. And, gotcha. But my wife, she used to always criticize. She's like, everybody else gets the best of you, and unfortunately we're left with the remnants. And she was correct, because, speaking to what you were just saying, I'd get up in the mornings. If it was during a work day, I'd be off before the kids were even awake, or she'd be awake. That's how early I just get out and go do my day and get started. But then on days when I wasn't having that commitment, even though I might get up early, I wasn't present for my family.
Right.
I was distracted. I was, I wasn't present. I wasn't there. I wasn't there emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. Even. I was there physically. Sure. Yeah. That was the only thing. I was taking up space, but
just like an autopilot.
It was, and not even like I was like auto park, just parked. I park on the couch and put on the TV, and I'd be like, "Oh, hey kids, you want to watch another movie? I'll put on a movie." It was like I was dadding or parenting through screens, right? And using that as a way to sort of just pass the time.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, man, it was so hard, And so when she asked that question, I hate this, but I know it's a pun, but I got, it was a very sobering question. Okay. Like it was instantly in that moment where I was like, yeah, no, I'm not being that guy. And I want to be that guy. Like deep down, I knew that's who I wanted to be. I knew I had that potential in me. And so I made a commitment to my family, like literally right then there, I took Christy, and it was like, this is my last ditch effort, right? Like this is it. And I knew that if I don't follow through on this commitment, she's going to take the kids, and then we're going to have to figure out some other creative way to be co-parenting these kids. And I didn't want that. I really didn't want that. That's because I love my wife. I absolutely adore her, and I envision my life being with her. And so all of a sudden this was becoming very real, that vision and this thing that I wanted. And I, really was this path I was going down. This is not going that direction anymore. And I sat them down and I said, I'm going to go 1 year and I'm not going to drink 1 year, because that's all I was willing to commit. I was like, I can just approve. I can do without alcohol for a year. And because I've done stints before, you guys know how that goes.
Because never again sounds so fun. You know what I mean? Yeah. It sounds so forever.
It does, right?
So I understand the 1 year logic. I get it.
Yeah. And I was giving myself a back door. And also in the past, I was just like, I can show you. It's got no influence over me. I can do with it or without it.
Right.
But I realized really quickly, after about a month in, because I started to share that with certain people that I'd made this commitment to go 1 year without drinking. So, because I was still getting the invitations to go show up. Everybody liked Fun Guy Dai.
Oh yeah.
That was it. I'd get the invites all the time to go, because I know we'd have fun and it'd be entertaining and whatever. And I started to show up sometimes. We're going to UFC one night with the boys, and I'm not drinking, couple fights in, the conversation, I just really realized, I was like, holy smokes, I can't connect with these guys. Like I felt like I wanted to go deeper with the conversation. I wanted to talk about some other stuff, but that was not going to happen, especially not in that situation. And so I started to really question my association. I started like, oh my gosh, well, who can I talk to about this stuff? And I realized I didn't really have anybody. And so I was barely functioning. I wanted to drink. I wanted to just fuck this. Like, this is way too much work. The other way is so much easier, and maybe not as fulfilling, but was easier. Right. And so that's sort of where it began. And then I realized I needed help. I found a psychologist. I went to some meetings. We got a relationships counselor so we could work on our communication. 2 meetings in, 2 second sessions. She's like, Christy, I think it's better if Dai comes back on his own. And I was like, well, that's so much for couples therapy. I
got a lot of work to do on this guy.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because you talked about the masking of different emotions. It wasn't just, that avoidance, and that really stuck with me. And you said that just a few minutes back. I'm like, oh yeah, I know that.
It's hard, right?
It's hard. What was it that you were avoiding though?
Well, a lot of stuff, after I started to work with a psychologist and actually open up on some of these conversations, because I didn't have any resources or internal understanding of how to even start to explore some of these feelings that I had. I had no point of reference. You got to recognize up to that point in my life, first 30 years of my life, I mean, a lot of the guys that I would hang out with, I mean, we like to have fun. We'd smoke, we drank, we'd work hard, but we partied harder. And that was just the way we operated. And I didn't know anything else, but the conversations never really went deep. They never actually went to us sharing, what are we really struggling with right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what would happen is I'd often feel like no one understands me. No one will get me. No one knows what I'm working through or what the challenges I have. I really started, I isolate. Yeah. It's like I'm on my own island, so I'm not going to talk about my problems because no one will understand me anyways, and they'll probably just judge me. This was my belief. Yeah. And all of a sudden I started to open up because I was shown tools to start to explore some of the things that I was feeling. And some of the things that I was feeling was, am I adding value to other people's lives? I started questioning that. Am I a good dad? Am I a good man? Am I a good husband? These are all things. And I didn't actually want to give myself the space to explore the answer. And so that brought up emotions. And those are a lot of the emotions I was trying to escape. It was more so fear, not understanding, feeling like I was failing in everything. So it was easier just to drink and mask it. Yeah. Then acknowledge that there is something here that needs to change if I want to change it. And I don't think I was ready to make a change,
And do you think there's a lot of that stigma still surrounding men? And I know that I felt it, but that we're supposed to be kind of wired to have this shield and, not let these things out and just deal with everything, and let alone, okay, we'll go in and fix the problem. And there you go. Everything's good. I've done what I do as a man. I think that sits out there sometimes in the ethos of what it is to be a man. So I know personally, it's a hard shift to getting more in tune with my emotions, which, boy, it's definitely helped that desire to not drink anymore.
Yes. And that's the key, right? Like as soon as you sort of clear your mind of these distractions or tools to help us avoid things, right? As soon as you start to remove those, or at least put them aside, things do come into focus pretty quickly, but it's usually focusing on the things that we're lacking. Like that was what became front and center for me, is like, I'm lacking in a lot of these areas, and I feel like less value. And a lot of it comes down to that self-perception side of things. Like, who do we see when we look in the mirror? And right down to that very basic things. Like, do I like me? And if I'm perfectly honest with you guys, I didn't like me outside of my professional life. I had a lot of great stuff going on. From the outside looking in, people would be like, wow, beautiful family. It looks like you have a great relationship. Like, yeah, I was very good at living an Instagram lifestyle.
Sure.
Highly curated. And I felt fake, and I didn't know how to really try to be who I wanted to be. And that's a scary place. Like I talked to a lot of guys about this stuff, and, I eventually found other men that were feeling similarly, and they wanted to create space where we can just share what's going on, what's raw and real for us right now, like alive and real right now. And so I started connecting with other men that were open to those conversations, not for coaching, not for mentorship even, but actually for just listening and being heard.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think back, guys, to your own experiences and those moments where, maybe you weren't living as your best version, and you think about some of the conversations, some of the actions that were happening, but you think about the association, like, were we ever shown any other way of doing things?
No.
Right.
No. Most certainly not. Coming from a family of addiction, no.
So that just raises a question. Well, when we find ourselves there, like, I mean, what do we do? Right? Like, how do we break that cycle? How do we get out of it? And I think each of us have similar stories, but different, right? Different experiences that led to that, different backgrounds that led to that. But at the end of the day, we're all wanting more. We're wanting more for ourselves. We want to actually live a life that allows us, as they say, follow our bliss. You know, if you're familiar with Joseph Campbell, like he wrote The Hero's Journey, and it's super interesting. We're all on this hero's journey, right? We're all on this path, and we learn stuff. We're challenged by stuff. I mean, that's life. I mean, we can't, expect to live life without a challenge. I mean, they come at us, and we work through them, or we work around them, and we often adapt. I mean, this has been going on for millennia. Like, human beings are very resilient, but man, we have a way of complicating things, and it's wild, right? It's just wild when we start to really pay attention to the human condition. I mean, we're all born, we live a life, and at some point we leave. And where we go to on the next journey, I don't know. I mean, lots of people have different beliefs around that. I'm not here to talk about that, but that space in between right now, what are we doing with that? And I think sometimes we're running away from who we are, or at least who we have the potential of becoming.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I read something the other day when I was doing some journaling that popped and stuck in my head when I was trying to really reconcile the actions and why I was doing it. And the quote was, "People without purpose will seek pleasure." And if we differentiate very much between joy and pleasure, that's a big factor too. People go, well, sex is pleasurable. I'm like, yes, but if you are with someone that you have deep intimacy, joy is going to be the stronger thing over pleasure. And then, I forget what buddy, and he's like, "Oh, that's fucked, man." I'm like, "No, it's awesome. Trust me." It's like,
not who you want to spend Saturday night with, but all day Sunday with.
Yes.
I didn't make that up. That's from a movie, but I just like the saying, and it related to that.
That was so on point. That was awesome. That was so good. I like that one.
I'm going to get that tattooed on me.
How did you start to do the? Oh, that's the next tattoo. I don't know if you can see it. It's sleeves, neck, face.
Awesome.
But so, how did you start to really find that joy and sense of purpose? Because you spoke about that, like no self-worth. We want to have purpose. All of us want to have purpose, and I think we're going to continue to butt into the same thing until we realize. And I know you've spoken about it, that what's the one commonality? Oh, it's us. We are the issue for how our life is going.
It is just crazy to think that we can pass the buck to somebody else when it comes to living our life. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's, at the end of the day, we are fortunate that we live in countries that do have a semblance of freedom. Again, depending on where your beliefs fall with this pandemic, it might not be 100% same anymore, but let's not go there today, boys.
No. Well, now that we're here, who'd you vote for? I'm just kidding. Don't answer
I'm a Canuck. I voted for the guy with the nice hair. But for those that know Justin Trudeau, he's always got a nice coif going. More of a playboy than anything else. But anyways, for me, when I started to dive into this place of unknown, right? Like, the unknown is intimidating, right? Like, we're intimidated by not knowing. I mean, look at what most fears are based around. Sure. Fear is based around just not knowing. Yeah. And it's that mystery that we're afraid of. It's like, because there's the potential that something bad could happen, but there's also the potential something amazing could happen.
Yeah.
And so it's trying to remember that. And, when I started going down this path, getting some support, remember going to meetings, I tried some 12-step programs, and I found some solace in that, from the standpoint, there was a community of people that were dealing with the same struggle.
Sure.
And that's where I recognize there's value in community and connection with others that can empathize, but not necessarily sympathize. Mm-hmm. Because I think, I never want someone to feel sympathy towards me. I don't want that. I don't like that emotion. Now, if you can empathize, if you can at least for a moment feel in your own body what you think it must have felt like for me to feel a certain way or to be dealing with a certain struggle, then we come from a place of understanding.
Yeah.
And at least from a place of understanding, we can create conversation to get more clarity and to find the common ground and to figure out how we can help one another, support each other. And that's what I was lacking. And I didn't even have the language to describe that. So what do we do? Just start to grow and to learn some of these things that we know, that because really when it comes down to change, we have to ask ourselves the very first question. Anytime anybody wants to change anything, the first question that comes to mind, whether you consciously or subconsciously think about this, is, hey, can I do this? Can I actually do this thing and make this change? Like, that's a daunting question. Yeah. But it often relates to education, to learning, to knowledge.
Agreed.
Learning a different way of doing different things to produce different results. Like, really, when you pull back the veil, that's all we're talking about here. Because if you can get clarity on what to do, and you start to do it, you start to build confidence in yourself that, hey, I can actually do this thing. That builds confidence. And once you have that confidence, the second question, and this is the question I really had to sit with, because I got confident. I was like, hey, can I really do this? Can I live a life without alcohol? Like, that's what I was asking myself, is like, can I actually live a life? Because I've just lived my first 32 years of my life with a lot of alcohol, like, I made up for the first 16 years with the last 16, and double down. And can I have a life without it? Can I learn to function without it? And at that point, I didn't know. So that, can I do this? I was like, sheesh, I can't do it alone. Second question. So let's just say you get to a yes on that first question, right? Like, yeah, I can do this. I know I can make this change. The second question is like, okay, if I actually do this, is it going to work? Right? Like, because we kind of want that guarantee, don't we? We want to know, like, hey, if I do this, it's like getting a job, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to clock in for these hours. Well, I know I got a paycheck that's going to be this amount. We kind of like that idea of, I do this, I'll get this result. But in life, we can have the plan as much as we want. The results don't always match the planning. And we have to be okay with that at times. And so if I do this, will it work? This is where it was really valuable to seek out community, because even though I didn't have that belief in myself, I got to meet other people that were further along on this journey of change than I was. Right. I could see how they were navigating those challenges. I could see how they've now created a beautiful life or rekindled a relationship or, reignited their business even, because even mine, I was bringing a lot of my stuff. This is when I knew I really had a challenge, was when I started bringing it to work with me. There was always that separation, but it started to affect my production at work, how I was leading my company. It's a slippery slope when you start to become really aware of that. And so there's question two, like, first, can I do this? You get a yes. Two is like, okay, if I do this, will it work? And now it's question three. Is it worth it? And, if we're talking about an organization or a nonprofit or a team environment, sure, we can use it. But what I needed to do was look in the mirror and say, hey, am I worth the change? Is my life worth the change? That question is not easy to answer, especially if you're coming from a place where you already feel like you have no value to offer. Yeah. That's where things are really tricky. I'll be honest with you, because I would say that, yeah, I'm worth it, but I didn't believe it. Again, it's where community, as well as having the ability to share what I was experiencing and actually ask for support and help, I realized who my true friends were. I realized who are the people I wanted to have in my life more. And the only thing that was limiting them being in my life more was me not allowing them in. And so those are those three questions, like those three alone. For anybody that wants to navigate change, just start exploring what those answers are for you. And then try to find a community of people that can support you with those. At least the changes are the things that you have to learn. Oh, shut up, Siri. Sometimes I slur with my S's and Siri starts talking at me. So sorry.
She had a lot to say about that too. She goes, you know what? Hang on.
But that's my point, is those three questions and community. And that's really how I started to navigate the change. And there wasn't a straight line, guys. It was the furthest thing from a straight line. It was a lot of zigzagging back and forth, going backwards, going forwards, like such is life. But the one constant throughout the entire thing was I'm learning how to do this without alcohol. Yeah. And it was very empowering. It was empowering.
Well, you bring up too about then when we choose our circles and boundary settings, a big part of that. What was that process like for you? I've gone through it. I really pretty hardcore. What would you say, like the last 9 months, where that's been a big theme for me? So I just really would appreciate that knowledge, because sometimes I don't think people understand, just because you care about someone deeply doesn't mean that they have a place in your life.
Well said. And you're right. It's boundaries are often like, I found as soon as I got clear on my values, like what was truly most important to me, and that was family. It was also, when I say faith, it was really just how am I seeking purpose and fulfillment in my life? That's what I mean by faith. Like at the end of the day, I'm like, I want to leave this planet better than it was when I got here. Like that's, the people like within it and all that. Like that's when I refer to faith, that's sort of what I'm referring to. Even finances, more so from the value that it gave me the freedom. When I actually looked at the financial stresses in my life and I was like, I don't want to have those stresses. And how do I have to live life, or what are the changes I have to make? Because often, I spend a lot of money on alcohol. I was also like the guy that would try to be cool. Oh, I'll throw down my card. Let me get the next few rounds.
Yeah.
Like stupid. Right. And
fuck that.
Oh my gosh. Well, but it was brutal. So I had credit card debt that I built up that otherwise wouldn't have been there. But me thinking that here I am, and these are all my friends. But it was interesting because when I stopped going out and stopped, because I did, that was one of the things I had to change. It's like, I can't be anywhere where I can't go anywhere where my values can't be honored, but also places where I don't feel I'm getting any value from it.
Right.
Based on the direction and the goals that I had for myself, wanting to create this life and get reconnected with my life, but also the people in it, and start to feel more fulfilled on purpose. And I recognize going to the pub, I wasn't going to help me with that. Golfing with the guys was great, but I wasn't going to stay for the 19th, just these little subtle things I was like, started to say no to. But then I also had to say, well, okay, if I'm saying no to that, I've opened up the space here to say yes to some other things. What are those things that I want to fill it with? Who do I want to fill it with? And that's where I really started to seek out different association. I joined Toastmasters community many, many years ago, right around the same time I was making these changes, because I knew that the social anxiety piece that I feel, if I don't deal with that, giving up the alcohol is going to be really tough. Because it was my way of masking my anxiety was with a few drinks. Even to the point where, I'd do a big presentation, I might have a drink or two just because it would loosen me up and make me feel more comfortable speaking in front of a group. Yeah. Well, now I'm taking away the alcohol. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do now? I'm not going to be able to do that stuff. And I was like, wow, no, that's not the kind of life I want to lead. So I found a community that can help me with that. Toastmasters is an example. So that's just one of the things that I found was really instrumental. But I mean, you talked about the last 9 months is what you've been doing. Like, what have you been doing? Like, what has been your... Like, I find that when we find something that works, and when I mean works, it just feels right. We start to do something that feels right. Yeah. Does that make sense? Like, and I'm wondering what feels right for you over the last 9 months, based on what we're talking about right now.
I think it was bringing up, like I said before, of things of purpose over pleasure. Yeah. And really, without even thinking about it, you saying it is a totally different value set and what I want out of my life. And some people, it's just like, I'm not going to go sit with you and have a mocktail while you get shit housed. I'm just not going to do it. And you slur on and on. But if you want to sit and you want to, I want to bring some value and have some value where it's reciprocal. And, these things go back and forth. And so it's just really an example of like, okay, this person was an ex. Well, that was a toxic relationship. Why would I think it's going to be a non-toxic friendship? Oh, wait. And Mikey even like, what the fuck are you doing? Oh, that's still a toxic friendship. Yeah, I'm done. Thank you. I wish you the best. Goodbye. And just that simple as saying it. Did it hurt? Yeah, it hurt me. It made me sad. But I started to see the interaction for what it was, who that person was, who I was to that person. It's like, there's no point here. We don't have the time to reconcile to create a friendship. The best thing we can do is I'll heal, you go, and you have a great life. I wish you the best, and I mean it sincerely. So things along those lines. And really just, overall identifying certain things. Like I have boundaries. I have friends, family members, if they call and it's like, I can tell you're drinking. I'm not going to talk to you. Have a good night.
Good.
I just don't. I'm not going to, because for me, it's a trigger, and I'm not the dick. You're the dick that knows it, and you're going to call me and give me a hard time. I don't fucking think so. So it's those things like that, and really focusing a lot on my kids, my relationship, my work, and I feel more fulfilled. I'm still doing a lot of that work of getting that more purpose. Like there's more we can do. The day should be more full, you know?
I like that you said that word too, that the idea about full. Just something to throw out there for everybody that's listening or watching this, you know, is if you catch yourself wearing the badge of honor that says busy on it, start asking yourself, why do we wear that badge so much? You know, like that was I believe that if I just kept saying I was busy and acting as busy, it would justify my actions. Mm-hmm. And I started to shift things. You know, my wife and I, many, many years ago, while this was all going on, you know, it was like, you know what, we chose not to be busy anymore, but we chose to be full. Mm-hmm. We chose to fill our life with the things that add value to us, but also provides value to others. And so that distinction of going from busy, stress, overwhelm, to now, no, life is full, but it's full of the things that we want, you know, and that was huge, you know, because that had to align with our values as well. Because sometimes we say we have certain values, but actually exercising those boundaries are challenging. It's hard, right? Like it just is. So we started to manage our commitments. I started to manage my commitments. So, you know, from the standpoint that I would only commit to things that I knew was in alignment with the life I wanted to live. And anything else outside of that, I'm like, you know what? I just got really comfortable saying no. And here's the thing about no, period. That's a complete sentence. I didn't believe that initially. I thought no, and then I have to give an excuse why, or a reason why. I have to justify why I'm saying no. I started to realize I don't need to justify my choices. You know, like, no, it's a no. It's not a fit for me, or I don't want to do that. Like, it's because it's not a fit. This is not something that is of value to me. And it was tough at first. I got to be honest, guys. You know, there were some people that would take offense to that kind of a response.
Oh, yeah.
They do. And I'm like, but I asked those people, like, why are you so triggered by me just saying, no, I don't want to come to that because it's not in alignment with what my values are. Like, what's your problem with that? Like, you shouldn't have a problem. I just said no. Like, but if they push, I tell them why. And that's usually the answer I give. I'm like, it's not in alignment with what I want in my life. I'm sorry, but it's just not a fit. Yeah. Like, the sorry part there is because I'm Canadian. Okay. So you don't have to apologize.
Born nice.
No. What?
You're just born nice as a Canadian.
That or naive, but you know, it's not, guys, it's not easy. And I want those that are listening or watching, you know, like I know this, what we're talking about, it's not easy. Change isn't easy. Mm-hmm. But every time I've made a change that I knew gut deep down, you know, that instinct, we all have a gut feel. We do. I mean, we might get really good at ignoring it, but it's there. We tend to know when things are right or in alignment with what we want. So it's being able to get back to trusting that feeling. Yeah. And I found it was a lot easier to trust it when I was sober, you know, and of clear mind, especially. Yeah. And then learning to exercise our boundaries. And if you don't have people in your network that will honor those boundaries, you have to start to ask yourself, well, where's this relationship stemmed from? Mm-hmm. You know, because I started to retrace some of my relationships and ask myself, well, the way this relationship formed was actually under completely different pretenses. Mm-hmm. You know, we met at a bar, we met at a club, you know, we met at an event or a party, and we were partying together. And so it's all of a sudden you become party friends. Yeah. Right. We have lots of those. Yeah. And all of a sudden I realized, well, I outside of the party, there was nothing in common. It wasn't the kind of person I would call up and say, hey, do you want to hang out on a Sunday? Sort of to play to what Mikey said, you know, like it wasn't. And so I started questioning my choices and why am I doing this? Like I feel like I'm going around in circles now, but it's that value piece and understanding that we all have value to offer. And you know, I'll sort of close with this because I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, because I already heard you guys sort of allude to this. You know, after about 2 years in on this change, you know, because it got to the end of that 1 year and I was like, you know what? I've had so much growth. I've seen so many things get better, like my quality of my relationships, even my own health, right? Like I started finding, like, man, I actually sleep really well. I get up in the morning, I feel rested. You know, I feel more in focus, more in flow, because I don't have the alcohol and the hangovers anymore. And so I started noticing just all these things, but also some of the relationships that I was starting to form, they were like, I felt really fulfilled from those relationships. And so now I started to feel really good about me. And in a way, you know, you hear the analogy of thinking about ourselves as a cup, right? And we want to fill up our own cup, you know, because a lot of us like to give and help, and that's awesome. But sometimes we give too much. Or we give more than we are taking in, and that creates this imbalance, and that can lead to a lot of other potential negative repercussions. But so it's this idea of trying to fill your cup before you fill others. And it's okay to be selfish that way, you know, because if you're not in your best place, you can't offer your best to others. And so I really started to grasp that. So the first year was really all about me and me getting well. Now I got into year 2, and I felt this surge to want to help others. So I started looking at my contribution. That is where things shifted into now a lifestyle, because now I wanted to help others. I wanted to support others. I wanted to connect deeper with others, but I wanted people that shared similar values and wanted similar things in life that I did. And could I offer and contribute to that? Because when we start to contribute and support others, I don't know, it wasn't even like I was missing anything anymore. Like, it was just like, no, it wasn't even a thought. You know, it was just, that was something I used to do. I don't do that anymore. This is what I do now. And so I'm wondering, how has contribution played into this piece of maintaining not only sobriety, but really just choosing to live your life without the distractions, right?
Yeah. Well, and you nailed it right there, without the distractions. Yeah. You know, I know for me, don't want to speak for you, but when we've had people reach out that, hey, you know what you guys are doing, I heard someone and now I see that I have a problem, I'm seeking help. Or we've had situations where you've talked with people that were struggling at the time and connected them with treatment facilities and mental health care facilities, you know? So I don't know that we set out thinking that would happen, but now when it does, it's like, wow, there's something going on that's bigger than us, that does mean something to people. Because for me, this is all of our conversations. I've joked like, God, I got so much out of that. I hope other people do, you know? So it's weird how that can work. What was it, Kobe Bryant, who said the selfishly unselfish when he was talking about,
rest in peace, Mamba.
Yeah, when he was talking about why he had to have the work ethic that he did, and it made me what you were saying, think of that, because then it allowed them to be there for everyone else, because he knew he was solid. His cup was full. He didn't look for anyone else to fill it, you know, which is such a toxic thing to do. That's a big reason for boundaries that I've got now. So, you know, I hope I answered your question.
You did. No, because I already kind of knew the answer, because this podcast is a prime example, and the conversations you're leading online is a prime example of contribution. You know, it is recognizing that there's so much more than just us as one, and wanting to be able to support others that might be dealing with similar struggles. And this is the super interesting thing when you really dive into like the hero's journey. And you go back through, you know, for as long as we've been telling stories, articulating stories, there's usually always a hero in the story, right? But we see ourselves as the heroes in our own story. And so there's these parallels in these beautiful fables and stories. And we can often, and we talked before we hit record today, right? We started recording. We're talking about superheroes. Like behind me here, I got, you know, a Captain America poster and some Marvel posters. And I got a Superman one right here in front of me. And I love those stories because they're not perfect people.
Yeah.
They're often flawed. The biggest heroes are. And that's so much like real life, but yet they still persevere and they still battle through those challenges. And they often come out the other side with deep learning and understanding. But there's always this idea of wanting to go back to where we began to help others. And we see this repeated in stories all the time. So there's something to that contribution piece, that fulfillment piece. And it's wonderful, because when you really start to embrace that, like that's where things really started to pivot for me, like completely changed, like to the point where I left a career of 17 years.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden my world of potential that I used to believe was like, you know, quite narrow, it blew up. There was no more blinders on, like I could see this massive landscape in front of me. And I was like, I want to go explore that.
Yeah.
Because me as a person had changed and had grown so much by leaving behind the crutch, leaving behind the distractions, and getting really clear on what I want, and not being afraid to articulate, hey, can you help me with this? And ask people, for help. And man, there's so many people out there that are willing to help because they're feeling the same way that we are, wanting to add contribution, wanting to support others, wanting to help others. And man, anyways, I get excited talking about this stuff, but
that's good.
It's what I just keep thinking about. And that's what you guys are doing, man. You guys are superheroes, and I love it. I love it.
Sweet.
Appreciate you.
Captain Colored Hair. I don't know what the hell I'd be called.
I don't know what I'd be called either.
Tattoo Man. No, and I want to ask you, because you talked early on, uncertainty, people need to understand, is such an important part of life, and embracing it and being cool with it, because not only did you leave your job, but your wife left her job, and you basically took the girls and went on like holiday for like 7 years or something, right?
Not
holiday per se, but
we started to, so as we started to change, my wife has always been someone that is not only a dreamer and a visionary, but she's just someone that's not afraid to go after what she wants. And I was inspired. I was always inspired. That's what actually attracted me to her to begin with, was that she was somebody that was very determined. She just happened. I met her at the right time. She was back from a trip abroad, like through Southeast Asia and Australia. She was back to basically replenish the coffers so she could go do it again. So I happened to meet her in between those two travel junctions, and we hit it off, and that's where the relationship started. And I was always just inspired by that, just her ability to just be so independent and to just go after and experience life fully. And without all the stuff that I normally would fill it with, and so fast forward, many, many years, and now we have kids together. Like, she still had the desire to live a life that was different, live a life that was focused on experiences and collecting of experiences, not collecting of stuff or things. And I admired that. And as I had started to really shift my perspective, because you get rid of the crutch, like I said earlier, my perspective opened up. What I believed was possible now changed. I started to believe a lot more was possible in my life. And so with that, she was dripping on me. She was like saying, hey, like, here's, because I was like, I'm a career guy. Like, I've got this company I helped co-found. There's no way I'm leaving this. Things are good. Life is good. Why would I want to leave this? Like, I just thought, like, I'm here forever. Like, this is my path. Sure. And I started questioning that. I was like, started to not feel very fulfilled with the work I was doing anymore. I wanted more. Fortunately for me, I've started doing stuff online just to add value, to create conversations, to support people, creating content that helps. And so all of a sudden, one day we got to this point where I'm like, I really don't want to do this anymore. And she got really excited. She's like, awesome. Here's some things that we could possibly do. She started sending me podcasts of traveling families, these full-time families that are experiencing the world together. I'm like, yeah, right. We can't do that. And she's like, why not? I'm like, oh, well, that's actually a good question. Why not? And I started to explore, well, what could that look like? And long and short of it, from the time that I gave notice at my career, I gave them almost a year and a half notice. Like, it was because I was an integral part of the business, and I knew it, to be leaving on a good note, I wanted to make sure it was set up so I could leave and walk away and everything would be okay. And I realized early on that I really believed I offered more value than I was, from the standpoint that as soon as I left, nothing happened, and the business just kept operating. So my ego was like, fuck, get rid of that. I'm really not that important. And which was a good lesson for me, because I used to live in the ego a lot. And I was like, forget that. It's just, I don't need that anymore. And so anyways, we that's it. I quit my career, gave my notice. We eventually got to the end of that term. As soon as we got to the term, she then gave her notice. So a month later, she was out of her job. Within 2 months after that, we got rid of pretty much everything, sold what we could, put some stuff into storage, and gave away the rest, packed up our SUV, pulled the kids out of school, and said bye. And we just started traveling. We had no plan. Like, guys, there was nothing planned. I didn't even, I left my cushy salary. I didn't have a lot of savings, but we had enough. And I started doing stuff online. So I had a little bit of money coming in. And we're like, well, how long can we potentially sustain this? We're like, you know what? I think we could go for a bit. We just kept figuring it out as we went. And, traveled around North America and then eventually went over to Southeast Asia. We ended up living in Bali for 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
And then came back here so our kids could finish high school in Vancouver. And so we moved back here right before the pandemic, actually. So it was interesting how the timing worked out. But over that 5-year period, we were just experiencing life. The kids were as we say, life schooled. And because we realized that mom and dad are not very good teachers, at least when it comes to academics. This is why I'm not a teacher. I was like, no way, man. I was like, if you guys want to still love me, I better not be your teacher when it comes to math and all this stuff, because it's not me.
Oh, yeah. And, no, I understand that completely.
Yeah, it's good.
My nephews come up to me, well, Uncle, how do you do this? And it's a math problem. And I'm just like, the fuck is that? Are you not paying attention or what? I can't show you how to do everything, guys. Come on. When really I have no idea how the fuck to do it.
I just tell them, hey, University of YouTube, hello.
Exactly. No kidding, right? You guys have the internet. We didn't. All right. So you figure it out.
Isn't there an app?
You don't have to ask me a question anymore. But
just Google it.
That's what happened. And we traveled for 5 years, lots of cool experiences. And during that time, I just sort of refined my own businesses online. And that's what I do now. I work online mainly. So, yeah.
How did your kids acclimate to the 5-year traveling? Were they down? Were they bummed?
They were pretty solid. There was a bit of qualms when they became teens and young teens. There was a little bit of the FOMO because they had friends that they were still connected to back here that were now going into high school.
Right.
And so they wanted a high school experience. I mean, living in Bali, we had these education centers because you have to work around, like if you don't actually have certain permits, anyways, that's another conversation, but we had to sort of play within the system, so to speak. So they were getting some education or some support when we made the commitment to come back. We wanted to at least get their education back on track. So we found a learning center and they got basically 6 months of condensed tutoring. Then we came back to Canada and they jumped right back into what grade they would normally be. And off we went. But there was a period there that it was challenging for the kids. And it was only because it was the social piece though. That was it. It wasn't, believe me, they didn't really care to go to school, but they wanted the social piece that came with school. And we wanted to honor that. So here we are.
I want to get into kind of daily practices for you that I think would be awesome to share. I have to ask about the silent meditation retreat in Thailand. And people, I mean, I could preface this anyway, but you literally spent a day, like the whole day. I don't mean like, oh, we go to work for 8 hours and we get maybe half an hour lunch break. No, you spent a day like 5 a.m. till what was it, like 10 at night? Like
9
no
o'clock
talking,
at night.
no nothing.
10 days of that.
Geez, your head would explode if that were to happen.
Guys, I'll tell you right now.
I could learn a lot.
There is nothing louder in the world than your own voice inside your head.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine.
It was insane. Like it was pretty intense, even though I wasn't doing anything. But it's amazing what starts to manifest in the body, like aches and pains that weren't really there, but just my body, like basically boycotting what I was doing, boycotting sitting there and meditating, trying to clear my mind. Like it was just really interesting to start to notice how uncomfortable I really was. And the first few days, of a Vipassana meditation, and the way they do this, they have these meditation centers all around the world. You just go to vipassana.org and VIPASSANA.org. Anyways, don't worry, Google will correct you. But you check it out, and it's cool because it's all nonprofit. It's all by donation. So even the people that facilitate these courses or 10-day courses, it's all volunteer driven. Which is really nice too, because it's completely accessible. They don't want dollars and cents to get in the way from people experiencing this. And they're all over the world. They're all over the States, Canada, like every country's got one pretty much. And so you go online, you register to do this, you show up at this meditation center and you basically segregate the men and the women. The guys go down one side, women go down the other side. I saw this this little Asian couple, right? They look like, because I ended up doing mine in Thailand, just outside of Bangkok, and this older couple, like they must have been in their 80s or 90s, and it was so cute. They got off the bus holding hands, they looked at each other, kissed each other, and then they went their separate ways. And they wouldn't see each other for 11 days. Like it was cool, but it was like they knew this. It was like it was ritual for them, like an annual thing. And so you go off here and they do a quick orientation, and then you take this vow of silence for the next 10 days. And you only eat one meal a day. It's only vegetarian based. And outside of that, you're pretty much meditating. Like that's it. They have fixed meditation times. And outside of that, you're just working on, what's going on inside. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. And after about day 5, day 6, things got a bit easier. You end up working through a lot. I don't want to give anybody else false impression of what it was like, because again, I'm speaking from my own experience. I encourage people to try it. Like you got nothing to lose and only so much to gain. But when you go into a controlled environment like that, and you really create the space to learn to meditate, and I mean really meditate, take that reflection time inward and go exploring inward, a lot of things are going to come up. And
that's right up my alley. I don't talk that much. I'm an introvert. You only see your chick once every 11 days. I'm a vegetarian. I'm all about it.
Dude, no, Mike, seriously, you should look it up. Like it's a phenomenal experience. And, but it's not easy. And in particular, so here's this, there was about 40 of us men on the male side of the meditation, center. And I remember they had the 40 pillows in the meditation hall, and you'd come in and you'd situate on a pillow, and that's basically your pillow for the next 10 days. Mm-hmm. So day 1 is great. We got about 40 of us there. Day 2, there's 3 empty pillows. Day 3, there's like 8 empty pillows. And so what was happening was guys were falling off and leaving. Like it was just that challenge. By the time we got to the end of it, I think there's only about half of us left, that had started the 10 days together. And I also realized, because you don't get a chance to meet these people beforehand, and there was some people from all over the different places around the world, as well as a number of Thai people and people from other countries. But I didn't have a chance to talk or get to know any of them. But you see them throughout for the 10 days. I didn't get that. Shut up, sir. Anyway, so, and here's the interesting thing. What I really took away from this is that I realized I am so quick to judge and make up stories about people when I first see them.
Sure, yeah.
I became so aware of that habit, and we all have it. Like, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with this. It's just, we get 60 to 80,000 thoughts going through our head a day. You got to figure out how to categorize that. And you can't be sitting there thinking, oh yeah, there's that one. Okay. There. Think about it. We would just basically sit on the toilet all day, like thinking. But here's the thing. I realized how quick I was to judge people. Like I'd see them, and I'd watch these people, and I make up stories about the kind of people that I thought they were. And then all of a sudden, at the end of 10 days, on day 11, they remove the vow of silence. You finally get an opportunity to talk to everybody and get to know them for that next morning. And I realized I had it all wrong for pretty much every guy there. Like completely wrong.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that was just a wonderful lesson and a reminder, is that, gosh, there's a lot of biases that we put on to other people without even knowing it.
Yeah.
And that was, a 10-day meditation experience. And I encourage you guys, if you get a chance, try it, man.
All jokes aside, that does sound pretty cleansing
and intensive.
Yeah.
It is
intensive. I would think being that the only thing that you are hearing is your own voice, and especially if you're many people probably listening, your negative voice is the loudest voice you hear. So you're going to have to confront and deal with that.
Yeah, you will, and especially just even the breath work. Like there's so much to breath work, and I'm not going to go into all the health side of things of meditation, but our nervous system is made up of parasympathetic and sympathetic. Okay, and so we have like the fight and flight side of life, and most of us spend a lot of time there, more time than we should.
Right,
and it creates a whole lot of other stress for us. Chronic stress, which has a lot of negative repercussions. And so when you're looking to make big changes, especially removing something that might have been there to mask certain things, and you're already in a heightened state of stress, and that's what you believe has been actually helping with the stress, it's important to replace that habit with something that might be a bit more constructive and a little bit healthier. as well as sustainable.
Right.
And I got to say, meditation was one of those things that really, really helped me. And I didn't have the Vipassana style meditation, but I always did meditate. Well, at least I became a more active meditator or a frequent meditator when I removed alcohol, because I knew that breath work was important. I knew that it would have a positive effect on calming my nerves and just for clearing my mind, getting rid of a lot of the chatter. It's not easy, but it's worth the effort. It's worth the effort. There's free apps out there. My favorite one's Insight Timer. I'm not affiliated, by the way, but I love the app. And because I know a lot of people like Calm or Headspace, but those are they cost money if you want to get all the features. Insight Timer is free. And that's why I always endorse that one. But anybody that wants to just start doing some meditations, grab Insight Timer, just pick one, pick a 5-minute guided meditation. Just start practicing. Because as soon as you experience it and you really feel the effects, game changer. So if there's one thing I can be like, I hope you leave this, today's, if you're listening to this or watching this, like this, just start meditating, my man. Start meditating,
Yeah. I've been trying to do it, but I'll check out that app and then I'll message you and let you know how it's going.
Please do.
Before we get to the random questions and leave you with the final thoughts, if people want to know more about you, what you're doing, your work, how can they find you? How can they get a hold of you, Dai?
Oh, well, thank you. I love having conversations with people. I just do, as you probably already realize. And living with 3 women, anytime I get a chance to have the mic in front of me, I'll take it. Because I don't get it that often. But I'm most active on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Okay. So just if you can type my name, don't worry, it'll autocorrect most of the time. Like it'll just shoot, because it's just such an interesting and different name. Dai is Welsh for David. Manuel is Portuguese. I know. I told you I'm Canadian. It's all good. And but if you type in Dai Manuel, you'll find me. Send me a message. Just start a conversation. And if there's anything I can support you with, I'd love to have the opportunity. And then if you have a chance, go to my blog, my website at daimanuel.com. There's about 1,800 articles. I've been blogging for 14 years. It's all geared around helping people get more out of life. That's all. That's all it is. It's all health and wellness and mindset-based stuff. And it's all free. It's all accessible. Just dive in. Hopefully you'll find something that helps. And if not, let me know. I'll point you in the right direction either way.
Awesome. Heck yeah. Mikey, you want to kick it off?
Let's do it. So these are just some fun random questions. Yeah. Have fun with it. If you could have dinner with anybody you wanted, living or not, who would it be?
I'd really love to have dinner with the Dalai Lama. Mm-hmm. Like, what a fascinating life. I won't go into too much on the I don't know how much. Should I keep the answer short?
Very short. We're on to the next. No, I'm just kidding.
Dalai Lama. No, the Dalai Lama would be my answer. I would love to pick that person's brain, pick his brain, and just what an interesting life. But it just the depth of internal and self-wisdom.
Sure.
Right. Yeah, like I would love to just get around that energy, really, more than anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Being that you and I are both superhero fans, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Well, I actually like to believe that, and I'll give you my real answer here. The superpower I truly believe that I do have is the ability to empathize with others. Mm-hmm. I've been through a lot. Morbidly obese as a teenager. I live with a chronic autoimmune disease, dealt with alcohol abuse. I have dealt with some pretty sad deaths in my life. And I've had a lot of lessons, and so that doesn't matter the person that I meet and the challenges that they're dealing with. I get them.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for us to have that feeling, to just know that there's people out there that understand and get where we're at, can meet us there, meet us where we're starting. Yeah. And so that's, I truly believe it's my superpower.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Boy, well, it's all that share right there. We easily, like 6 months, a year down the road, part 2 with you, because it seems there's a lot more knowledge and things to share for sure.
Absolutely.
Mikey.
If they were to make a movie about you, who would you cast to play you?
Woo! Oh man, that's a great question. You know what? I am I love Chris Hemsworth, like a total bro crush, man. I would be all over that dude. If he called me up and said, "Hey, you want to go on a date?" I'd be like, "I'm there, man."
I get it. I got the same bro crush with Johnny Depp. Everything he does is just fucking cool. He's just cool to me.
I love Hemsworth though, like his attitude and his energy, but also his commitment to his own health. I just respect that so much.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know, did you hear he's been casted to be Hulk Hogan?
Oh, brother, I knew this a while back. Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know that. I just heard that. I was like, yes, that's awesome.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big pro wrestling fan.
I was going to say, I'm sure you knew that. Yeah.
I actually worked in the business for 2 years. So
what? No way.
TV commentator for a company here in California. Yeah.
That is the coolest.
I wrestled, just not professionally. Me and my friends were just beating the shit out of each other with chairs.
Right. All right, I got to ask top 3 favorite superheroes. Got to know.
Yeah, I'm still really, I love Spider-Man. I'm a big fan. And I also love Wolverine. I think Wolverine's just a really cool character. Oh, but if I have to pick a third, I know Superman's kind of the cliche. Everyone references Superman, but I always did like Superman, but I wouldn't say he's my favorite. I don't know if you follow any of the new Spider-Man, but Miles Morales.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate where they're going and that introduction of that character. Like, it's good to see some diversification. It's not all just straight white guys, like, and also, Marvel's brought out a whole Pride series. Yeah. And Voices Pride, and it's really cool. They've introduced all these just new and more gender fluid characters.
Yeah, sure.
But if I had to go with a bad guy, Loki. I love Loki. I think he's hilarious.
You like the shit stir? I see.
Oh God, I love it, man. I just love I but even like they've casted the perfect guy for that. I mean, I could, like, if you read the comics and you see how he is in the comics, I mean, it's just it's a really well casted role.
Absolutely nailed it. Mikey, anything else? Or
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
That's all good.
I have one more random question, just totally random. Top 3 favorite bands.
Well, yeah, I guess, my number one, just because of the nostalgia piece of it, it means something to me, is Tragically Hip.
Okay. Right on.
It's a Canadian band, and just absolutely, I adore it. But it's also when I was 14 and at my largest, and I started exercising, I was listening to Up to Here, the album, a lot, but also Alice in Chains.
Oh, okay.
And so I've got this really strong connection to those two bands just because of that change that I went through, and they were part of it,
Yeah, no, for sure.
And then, but it's not in band per se, but Chet Baker. I love all his old classic work and his trumpet work, and even his vocals, right? Like, if anybody knows Chet Baker, just go to listen to him on Spotify, and it's just really quality music,
Yeah.
So jazz. I'm a big jazz fan. So
yeah, I'd say must be a jazz guy there, huh?
Yeah.
Jazz guy, are you?
Jazz guy.
Yes.
He plays the jazz flute. All right. Well, this is your time to leave the listeners with some final thoughts, some wisdom, and anything else you'd like to share.
You know what? I'm going to share something that somebody far wiser than me ever said. And it was said about, I guess, maybe 2,600 years ago. The guy's name was Buddha. All right. And he said that, there's one thing that we know for absolute certainty in life, and that's that nothing stays the same. Everything is in a state of change. And I really love that. And I value that because, it's when we lock on to things, that this idea of we don't want things to change is usually when we welcome in suffering. We welcome in the opportunity for disappointment or the fear of loss. So it reminds me, when I think about that and I really think about it, it's like, being fully present right now, not thinking about things that may become, things in the future that will probably never happen the way that I imagine it, or worry about things that I can't change anymore, but being present right now. Because he said, this too shall pass, so when you are having those challenging times, don't worry, it will pass. It will change. It can change. But here's the thing, and I'm going to leave it at this. When he says this too shall pass, he's also referring to the amazing things in our lives. All those good things that happen, all those little moments where we feel immense gratitude and thankfulness for the cool stuff we have in our lives, the cool friends that we have, cool podcasts like this one we get to listen to. But you know what I mean? Like it's those good things in life, they also will pass. Don't be upset about that. Cherish it for what it was and experience it fully right now. So that's all I can leave with you, but don't take my word for it. Take Buddha.
Dai, man, this has been cool.
Great talk, man.
Thank you, good sir.
Thank you, guys. I really love what you guys are doing, honestly, and I'm sure you don't get this enough, but you should. We need more of this in the world. We really do. And thank you guys for leading the charge, but more importantly, leading this conversation and showing people what's possible. What's possible if we just open up and be willing to accept that, yeah, I can be a champion of change too. I don't have to be a victim of one. And that's really what I feel you guys are embodying. So thanks for the opportunity today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Appreciate you, man.
Usually guests don't get me emotional, but doing it.